Welcome back, everybody. In keeping with this very busy day in Washington, the other big story that we're following is the historic repeal of the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell, signed into law today by the president.
No longer will tens of thousands of Americans in uniform be asked to live a lie or look over their shoulder in order to serve the country that they love. None of them should have to sacrifice their integrity as well.
Right now, on average, there are 36,000 gay men and women serving on active duty, with another 65,000 on guard and in the reserve. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach is a decorated 19-year veteran flight officer for the U.S. Air Force, discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and he joins me now live from Washington. Victor, this was a big morning for you. You were there for the signing, and in this atmosphere, as I was watching, at one point you were hearing cheers from the audience. So were you one of those people that was cheering the president, yelling out those words of encouragement before the signing?
Absolutely. This was a historic day, and not just for me, obviously. This is a great day for me, but for those tens of thousands that you mentioned earlier that are currently serving on active duty in Guard and Reserve. It gives us a light at the end of our tunnel. You know, I'll still be continuing in this limbo status, and they'll still be at risk while the law is still active until certification, but at least now we see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and those tens of thousands who are currently serving can now do so with their dignity and integrity intact, no longer serving in fear. So this is a great day. I was cheering with everyone else as loud as I could.
Did you think this day would come? I mean, I know that this is what you've been fighting for, but did you really believe that you were going to see this day come, and especially during the lame duck session that we were in right now?
You know, this last 2.5 years has been a roller coaster of events for me, and even more so, more intensely, this last couple of weeks. I actually didn't truly believe it, and especially a couple of weeks ago after the second failed Senate vote, I was probably at my lowest of lows there. I remember writing a good friend of mine and saying, you know, I've served my country for 19 years. I've always believed in my country. I've wanted to serve it, and I believed in its values. And this was the first time in my life I felt that I'd lost faith in my country, only to see that days later the House, under the leadership of Congressman Patrick Murphy, really the hero of this effort was Patrick Murphy, passed it for the second time. And then just days later, that's where I started to get the sense, was last Thursday, that this might happen. So I flew to D.C. because I couldn't miss this vote. So this last few days have been very surreal. Obviously, there's been a whirlwind of events. It started to sink in yesterday at the signing ceremony with Speaker Pelosi, and then finally today to have the president sign off and put his hand on the desk and say, "This is done." That's where it really went full circle with me, especially since a year and a half ago he looked me in the eye and said, "We will get this done." So this president, this commander-in-chief, fulfilled his promise not just to me, but to thousands of service members and veterans all over the world.
Victor, does this mean you'll go back?
I've been active duty this entire time. I'll be at work tomorrow in my uniform, just as I have for the last 19.5 years and the last two and a half years that I've gone through this ordeal. So I'll be back in uniform. I'll be checking back in from leave, and then be ready to head home for Christmas, and I'll be able to continue to serve as I have again for 19.5 years.
And moving forward, what do you think that this means for the rest of the military? I know that now that this exists, how do they expedite the process of implementing it?
I don't know all the details. I just know that it'll go through a certification phase. It has to be signed off by the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. There is no timeline for how long that takes, and there's no important point here to make is that service members are still at risk. In fact, if they need more information, they can call Service Members Legal Defense Network, and there's a site, www.sldn.org, still at risk, where they can get more information. They need to understand that until this is certified, until this is signed off by the President, there's another 60-day period after that. So it could be 2, 3, 4 months. We don't know. They're still at risk. I still remain in my limbo status as I have been, but still on active duty. So they need to understand that until this is signed off and certified, Don't Ask, Don't Tell does remain in effect.
See, I think for everybody, I mean, I'm listening to you and we're having this conversation. I'm confused. I mean, you're on TV right now talking about the fact and being open and honest about who you are. So how can you remain at risk? Doesn't that just mean, I can understand being in limbo, but how does that mean you remain at risk?
Well, you know, I've had an active case for 2.5 years, and I filed suit as well as a restraining order and an injunction against the Department of Defense and Air Force in August. So my case has sort of been on hold somewhat since August. I've always had faith that I was going to be able to serve to my retirement. I'm eligible for retirement this fall. I've actually filed my papers to retire. So I personally never felt at risk, but service members need to know that the way the law was written, they are still at risk, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell will continue to be in enforced until certification is complete. We hope, and the President assured us today, and trust me, I believe more than ever now that this is a man who keeps his word and keeps his promises. He said today that it will be done efficiently and swiftly. So I do believe him. So I think it will just be a couple months down the road. And the beauty is that service members like me right now, we see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll soon no longer have to serve under this dark shadow.
Well, congratulations. I know this was really monumental and certainly special for you and everybody else today.
It's a great day for America, for the military, for civil rights across the board. It was a historic day. Thanks.
Well, Victor, we appreciate your time. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Fehrenbach. Thank you again.